All right, let's get into it because this latest Messy Monday discussion was one for the books. And trust me, you're going to want to watch until the very end because the way things played out between Maurice Scott, Dustin Ross, Claudia Jordan, and Carlos King had me pausing, rewinding, and shaking my head. This wasn't just a casual conversation. It turned into a moment where Maurice Scott checked on his views about Martell Holt. And the reactions from the other panelists were nothing short of priceless. So stay locked in, because as we break this all down, every detail just makes the picture clearer and the drama juicier. The episode kicked off with Maurice Scott appearing on Carlos King's Messy Monday show. Now, if you've been following things closely, you know the last time Maurice was on this platform was memorable for all the wrong reasons, mainly because So Gucci from Bell Collective had confronted Carlos about not feeling protected when he brought her husband's ex-wife on the show. That exchange got so tense that Carlos ended up deleting the video. So when Maurice showed up again this time, fans were already side-eyeing the situation, wondering what kind of energy he'd be bringing and how much defending of Martell Holt. He tried to do... Spoiler alert, he did not disappoint in that department. As the conversation moved to the latest episodes of Love and Marriage, Huntsville, Maurice tried to stick up for Martell Holt, saying that the viewers have put Martell upstage in a crazy headspace over the years. And listen, this is where Dustin Ross stepped in like a breath of fresh air, shutting that down immediately. Dustin made it clear that Martell didn't just get thrown into a bad position. He put himself there. That's right. No one forced Martell to cheat on Melody Shari. No one forced him to step outside of his marriage. And no one forced him to sign on to a reality TV show, knowing full well that his life and his mistakes would be on display for the world to see. Dustin wasn't rude about it, but he was firm, and you could almost see Maurice realizing in that moment that he wasn't going to get away with painting Martell as a victim. Maurice kept insisting that Martell has been battling with his back against the wall for 6 or 7 years, pointing out that we've all watched the demise of his family unfold on television. But here's the thing, Martell made those choices. Yes, everyone makes mistakes, but when you repeat them, shows zero accountability. And then deflect blame onto everyone else. Sympathy is hard to come by. Claudia Jordan jumped in to say exactly what so many viewers have been feeling for years. Martell seems like he would be a nightmare to deal with. She called him out for being the type to push buttons, deflect, and manipulate situations to make himself look like the victim. And honestly, that was spot on. What made this even more satisfying was the fact that Claudia and Dustin were not backing down. They weren't intimidated, they weren't playing into any charm, and they weren't letting Maurice spin the narrative. Carlos King was sitting there quiet for most of this exchange, clearly letting the two of them handle Maurice. And to Maurice's credit, once he saw that neither Claudia nor Dustin could be easily manipulated or talked over, he toned it down. He even tried to poke at Claudia by saying he'd rather be diagnosed by someone with college degrees and letters behind their name, and Claudia, without missing a beat, fired right back. That's when you knew she wasn't here to play. The conversation then shifted to the NDA rumors that Crick Fletcher had mentioned, alleging that Maurice and his brother Maurice Scott have women sign NDAs. Maurice was clearly irritated about this, saying he had no idea where that information came from, especially since he and Chris Fletcher don't even hang out like that. He didn't just deny it. He said it was unfair because it dragged his wife Kimmy Scott into unnecessary drama. But when Claudia pointed out that Martell has also called his wife a side chick and accused him of cheating, it was just more proof of how messy Martell can be, even toward people he calls friends. This is when things took a funny turn. Maurice claimed that Martell has a tell when he's about to lie. He clears his throat. Dustin and Claudia immediately started laughing, picturing all the times Martell might have done this on camera. Carlos tried to stay neutral, but even he couldn't hide his amusement at the thought. Fans in the comments were already calling for a compilation video of every time Martell clears his throat before dropping questionable statements. It was one of those lighthearted moments in the middle of a conversation that had otherwise been pretty tense, but the highlight was still Dustin's firm stance on accountability. He reminded everyone that every time Martell talks about the demise of his marriage, he dances around the truth, only lightly admitting fault before quickly shifting the blame elsewhere. This habit of avoiding responsibility is exactly why many people are frustrated with him. Dustin's comment about wanting to shake the TV when Martell talks hit hard because it's relatable. Viewers have been watching this same cycle for years. Excuses, deflection, and button pushing without ever owning up to the real issues. What I loved about this panel dynamic is that Maurice couldn't gaslight his way through it. Claudia and Dustin are both quick thinkers, articulate, and not afraid to speak their minds. This made it impossible for Maurice to downplay Martell's behavior without being called out on the spot. And even though Carlos tried to keep things light, you could tell that the truth was hanging heavy in the air. Martell Holt has built his own reputation. And if he wants it to change, he's going to have to start with genuine accountability. By the end of the segment, it was clear that the audience was on the same page as Dustin and Claudia. The idea that they put Martell in a bad place just doesn't hold up when you look at the facts. Martell's actions, both on and off the show, have been his own doing. And while Maurice may continue to defend him, the rest of the panel and plenty of viewers aren't buying it. So, you've been wondering whether Martell Holt is misunderstood or simply reaping the consequences of his own actions. This conversation gave us the clearest answer yet. And honestly, with Claudia Jordan and Dustin Ross in the mix, Maurice didn't stand a chance at controlling the narrative. This was one of those reality TV adjacent moments where the behind-the-scenes dynamics were just as interesting as the show itself, and I have a feeling that conversations sparked by this panel are far from over. And trust me, you're going to want to keep watching because the tension between defending a friend, facing the truth, is something that's only going to get more complicated as the season goes on. This is what happens when Maurice tries to defend Martell. In a live conversation, imagine what's coming when these topics hit the actual show. It's going to be messy and I am here for every second of it. And then, y'all, the funniest little side conversation broke out when Mrs. Jones chimed in, talking about how Martell has all these tells when he's about to lie. She swore up and down that heel, wipe his nose or mouth, look down toward one of his shoes, and then give that little smirk men get when they know they're about to try it. You could hear everyone on the panel picturing it. Claudia especially was cracking up, and it became this whole Easter egg hunt moment where folks were saying they'll be watching every future episode looking for the exact second Martell does it. Dustin was hollering, and Carlos was sitting there with that "I'm not saying anything, but y'all might be onto something" face. It didn't stop there. Maurice Scott told flat out that he needs to take that "let me clear my throat" bit to the reunion this year. And honestly, can you imagine him walking out to that song while the whole cast sadies him? That's reality TV gold waiting to happen. The jokes kept rolling, but underneath all the laughter, you could still feel that tension. Because everyone knows those little tells are just a surface-level peek into how Martell operates. When Claudia said she might have to call in if Martell's on next week, I knew she meant it. She was ready for a showdown. And let's be real, Martell's not the type to just sit back quietly if Claudia starts pressing him. He'll get defensive, he'll deflect, and he'll probably try to turn the tables, but Claudia's wit is too sharp for that. Carlos calling the show Monday Night Live instead of Messy Monday might be an attempt to make it sound cleaner. But the energy, it's still messy, just with better lighting. Martell really does show up in the coming weeks. That exchange could be one of the spiciest we've seen on this platform yet. Then came the NDA chatter again. Maurice made it crystal clear that he did not appreciate Chris Fletcher's comment about him and Marcia allegedly having women sign NDAs. His whole thing was, "Come for me if you want, but leave my wife out of it." Which sounds noble, till you remember some of the things Maurice himself has said about Kimmy on camera. Claudia didn't let that slide either. She reminded everyone of the Jeep Rubicon comment, the hair joke, and that infamous just bend over and take it remark. Take it remark.